Minai's journey. Mohsin Minai was unsatisfied with his conventional life as an enameller's assistant and set off to make his fortune. He wandered out of his native town, looking for opportunities. He had just passed the main gate when someone whom he knew slightly called out, "Mohsin, if you want a job as an enameller, I know someone who has a vacancy." Minai said, "No, thank you. I have abandoned that kind of life. I am in search of better things." If, however, he had taken the offer, he would soon have become a famous enameller and a revered artist, for such was the end of the opportunity whose beginning he declined to accept. This encounter made him all the more anxious to follow his destiny. He said to himself, "If I had not started on my journey and had only sat in that enameller's booth in the bazaar, I would not have been given that chance to become a fully fledged enameller for several years. So I see that in travel there is opportunity." He continued on his way. Presently he met a stranger who asked him, "What is your occupation?" "I am a master enameller," said Mohsin, thinking to himself, "Well, I would have been such by now if I had stayed in my own town. Why then should I represent myself as only an assistant?" The stranger said, "My sister is getting married, and I would like to give her some unique enamel article. Would you care to make it for me if I were to give you all the materials and facilities?" "Certainly," said Mohsin. So he settled down in the nearby village and made a magnificent enamelled bracelet for the wedding. Minai said to himself, "Here I am, making money and earning credit and admiration by assuming a stature which I did not have before in men's eyes, but which I am manifestly able to sustain." He had bought a shop from the proceeds of his first large independent commission, and thought that he would spend some time in that particular town. But not long afterwards, someone came into the shop and said, "I am an enameller, seeking somewhere to settle down. I would like to buy your business." And he offered Mohsin such a very large sum of money for his shop and its goodwill that the transaction was soon completed, and Minai was on the road again. After a day or two on his journey, Minai was attacked by brigands, who took all his money and left him stripped, beaten, and helpless by the road. Minai did not realize that if he had stayed where he was, he would have been very much worse off, because on that very day the shop which he had sold was swallowed by an earthquake, and his successor was killed. Minai lay there, bemoaning his fate and his lack of ability to stick to one thing, regretting his selling the shop because of greed. Presently a charitable man passing that way approached the luckless enameller. "Come to my house," he said, "and I will help you." Minai went to his new friend's house and stayed there while his wounds healed. The man gave him a job in his garden, and Minai spent 3 years there, afraid to travel again in case he was unlucky and something unfortunate should happen to him. He congratulated himself, at the same time, upon his own humility in being able to suspend his ambitions and upon his capacity to fill such a humble post as gardener, when he was really a craftsman. He regarded himself as specially virtuous in repaying his debt to his rescuer, by serving him in exchange for such instant compassion as had been shown to a penniless wanderer. What Minai did not know, however, was that if he had stayed there by the wayside, something completely different would have happened. The brigands had soon quarrelled, when ill luck struck them several times in succession. The leader was killed by his second-in-command, who brought back all Minai's money, and more as well, and threw it down on the spot where Minai had been lying, to get rid of the curse. When he had worked for 1,000 days in his patron's garden, Minai begged permission to leave, and he made for the nearest town. He got himself a job as an enameller's assistant, and in due course worked his way up to the position of head enameller with a goldsmith. Now, he said to himself, I am really back on track again, because this is where I would have been if I had never had such ideas of greatness and had not started on my journey at all. But what he did not know was that his imaginings about his own humility, and his vain belief that all the events in his life formed some sort of coherent whole, were the barrier to his real progress. When, through a misunderstanding, Minai was arrested and convicted for embezzlement, he started to rearrange his thoughts like this. If I had only stayed where I was, I would have been better off. But such misfortunes as the present one are only trials, and I must be patient. What he did not realize, and never understood throughout his entire life, was that various events are part of different cause and effect threads in a life. Anyone who tries to put them together into one whole story, flattering to himself by postulating a single destiny, will meet the kind of result which is no test of humility and patience at all, but a payment for his own stupidity. People who always imagine that they are under test when they are being requited are suffering from vanity, which prevents them even from imagining that at some time or other they may be reaping the harvest of something sown by them. Bread, mice, and keep bread away from mice, and Sufi work from scholars, saying, The Legend of the Hidden Physician. In a certain country there was a physician. He lived at a time when medical skill was, in most places, at a low level. He decided, because of this, to make his knowledge available in the farthest west of the continent in which he lived. In that land, called Garb, medical knowledge was almost non-existent, though in every other way its inhabitants had developed a high culture. Being wise as well as learned, our physician made extensive inquiries about the people of Garb before he went there. He discovered, among other things, that there was a tendency among the Garbs to possess themselves of anything useful that they might hear about, and use it in a destructive manner. Certain despots, again, were known to get hold of valuable facts of knowledge, and preserve them for their own private use. He therefore caused a rumour to circulate to the effect that there was a doctor in a far-off land who knew the remedy to many ailments. Many people set off in search of him, mostly for the wrong reasons, for they were citizens of Garb. Because of their eagerness, some say greed, certain of these travellers actually believed that they had found the wonderful doctor. Sometimes they met him but did not know it. They then thought that their malady had been healed by some other means. Sometimes they thought that their sickness had cured itself. What was really happening was that the doctor, concerned only with healing and preservation, lived incognito among his patients. He also had representatives in other countries. These people said that they had cures for various diseases, but that they were very expensive. There was, in fact, no charge, and the medicines cost nothing at all. How then was the money spent? It covered the travelling expenses of the doctor, who often had to journey personally from a great distance to examine a patient, generally without the patient's knowledge, and prescribe a course of treatment. Because, for necessary reasons, the procedure was concealed, the patients often assumed that the time taken for the medicine to work was something to do with the relationship between the body and the prescription. In reality, of course, the passage of time corresponded to the period which it took the doctor to travel to his patients. Imagine now what happened when this doctor died. All the misinformed intermediaries continued to talk about the distant cure, the time, and the cost. They did not know that another physician, nominated by the first, succeeded him and carried on the treatments in a way suited to changed conditions and his own individuality. He did not always choose the same representatives or their successors. The repentance of the wolf is death. Proverb. Only 3 men in the world. Once upon a time, when the sons of Adam had multiplied exceedingly, calamities began to increase. Some of these calamities were called disease, some were called the folly of men, some were of unknown origin and meaning. People banded themselves into tribes and nations, so that they could endure, repel, or escape these calamities. People grew apart and ceased to understand themselves and even one another. Those forms of activity which men had devised, imitated, and learned, even from insects, now prevented them from giving their attention to some of the purposes for which men were originally distributed upon the earth. The dervish teacher Hida travelled far and wide among the various sections of mankind, in deserts and towns, in islands and mountains, in villages and nomad camps, looking for people who might be able to hear his message. The real welfare of man is the same as the real welfare of men. But the strange fact was that there were only 3 men in the whole world who could hear him speak. Hida said to the first man, "Come with me on a journey, for it may perhaps do you some good." The first man followed him, and presently they came upon a river. As they looked at it, Hida asked, "What would you like that river to be to you?" The man said, "I would like it to obey my commands, so that I could make it work for me, and that by its use I could benefit myself and also others." "Very well," said Hida. They continued on their journey, and presently they came upon a mountain. Hida said, "What would you like that mountain to be to you?" The man said, "I would like it to give me its knowledge, for it has been here longer than I. Then I could make use of the knowledge and pass on some of it to others." "Very well," said Hida. They went on their way, and next they arrived at a country of smiling fields and fruit-bearing trees. "What would you like this country to be to you?" asked Hida. "I would like to have this country, for I could then live here and pass my remaining years instructing others in the wisdom which I will have gained," said the man. "Very well," said Hida. And then Hida left this man, and in due time all these things came to pass. Now Hida found the second man who could hear him, and invited him to accompany him on a journey. Together they set off. They came upon a wise man who was talking to the people, and Hida asked the second companion, "What would you like this man to be to you?" "I would like him to accept me as his successor, so that when he died I could carry on his teaching," said the second man. "Very well," said Hida. They continued on their way, and presently they came upon a gathering of men who were oppressing some innocents. "What would you like to be able to do in these circumstances, if you had the choice?" asked Hida. "I would like to be able to remove this oppression from those innocents and punish the wicked," said the man. "Very well," said Hida. They continued on their way, and later they arrived at a town where the people had many qualities, but yet had become so narrow-minded that they would not leave the town in order to share their abilities with others. "What would you like to be able to do about this?" Hida asked his companion. "I would like to be able to convince all these people that they have a duty to share what they know with everyone in the world," said the man. "Very well," said Hida, and he left this man, having granted his wishes. Then Hida went and found the third man, the last man in all the world who could hear him, and asked him to accompany him on a journey. The man agreed. They had not been travelling very long when they came to a place where there were nobles and slaves, high and low, and people of a middling state as well. "What would you like to be able to do in such a situation?" asked Hida. "I would like to be able to do what is really right," said the man. "Very well," said Hida. They continued on their way, and when they came to some people who were hungry since their crops had failed, Hida asked his companion, "Would you like these people to be fed?" The man answered, "I would like them to be content with poverty when it is best for them, and discontented with it when that is right for them," said the man. "Very well," said Hida. They continued on their journey, and presently they arrived at a place where people all appeared pious and obedient, where they maintained law and order, and where everyone seemed contented with his lot. "What would you like to do with these people?" asked Hida. "I would like them to be able to understand exactly what is good for them and what they could be doing and feeling," said the man. "Very well," said Hida. Hida, after granting this man's 3 wishes, left him, and it is from these 9 aspirations of the only 3 men in the world who could hear Hida that every kind of human enterprise and preoccupation is derived. It was the work of the 3rd man, however, which found acceptance with Hida, and which is working its way out through successive generations of men. The thief who has not been caught is a king. Proverb.